Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Jamie Photography. I had a wonderful time this morning. I'm up in York, in England, on a business trip, and I got up nice and early this morning. Sunrise was at 3:41 this morning, so I got up before then to get an opportunity to go and shoot the Shambles. That's the name of this street in York. Actually, it was the part of the inspiration for J.K. Rowling's Diagon Alley in Harry Potter. There are real magical shops along this street, as you can see here, and the title of this tutorial is the York Ghost Merchants. It's a real place. I'm not making any of this up. This is a real place, and if you ever get a chance to come to the United Kingdom, or if you live here, go to York and visit the Shambles. It's a wonderful place. I've done a number of different angles and shots from here, and over the next couple of months, I'll probably come back and revisit this street, and maybe we'll do some day to nights. But you're welcome to follow along with me, because I'll place the raw file here down in the comments below. So feel free to download and follow along. If you do choose to use the image on social media to show what the work that you've done, then please respect my copyright and give credit to myself, Jamie Mathlin, for taking the original image. Where did we start? Well, this is the original image. I'm very impressed. I've just changed cameras. I was a Sony A7R man and have been Sony for 7 years, but prior to that, for 20 years, I was Canon, and I've taken the opportunity to go back to Canon. So I now have a Canon R5, and I have a wonderful 14 to 35 millimeter lens, which gives us a great shot here. But what you'll see is, when I shot this image, I made sure that I stayed inside the histogram. I didn't go over the end of the histogram in terms of too much brightness. So all of the brightness you see and all the darkness that you see, we can open the shadows, bring down the highlights, and we can work with that. And that's what I'm going to show you now. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do to this image is I'm going to enable the lens profile correction, because this lens is very, very wide, 14 millimeters, but it has a tendency to have quite a barrel distortion, and what we want to do is correct that. And the profile is in Lightroom, so I'm going to tick that, and I can see it's for Canon RF 14 to 35, which is the lens I've used, and you can instantly see there, if I just switch it off again, you can see how much correction you actually get. So always a useful thing to do to make sure your lens corrections are enabled. So next thing I'm going to do is apply noise correction. So we're going to go to detail, and we're going to use the new denoise function. So I'm going to click on that. Now, I did shoot ISO 100. I was on a tripod, 13 seconds. However, you will notice that there is still a little tiny bit of noise, and particularly in the dark areas. And when we start pushing the shadows, you will start to see more noise. So it's worthwhile applying the denoise function to it. So if I move to a darker area, you'll see before and after. You can see in the lettering here, the detail. So before and after is sharper. So we're going to run that now. So click enhance, and it will just run through the cycle, and it will apply the denoise to the image itself. So yeah, a little bit of a story about this place whilst we're waiting for this to do. The Shambles in York, a wonderful place. It's still very much 14th century buildings, and it's quite an interesting place to visit, and there's no vehicles allowed through, and if you get up nice and early in the morning, and if I just look at my timings here, as you can see, this was 3:37 in the morning, so yeah, very early, but it was I think sunrise was 3:40. I was hoping for a nice sunrise, didn't get one. Blue hour turned into grey hour, so as you can see, it's blue hour at the moment. So I haven't done anything to this shot. This literally is straight from the camera. It's the raw image, other than the noise correction that we've just done. So so after I've done that, what I'm now going to do is look at the um, the crop, and I'm also going to look at the perspective because I want to be sure that the image is usable. That's always a good step to do. So I'm going to go down to transform, and I want to try to straighten because we've got a little bit of a pull in here. So I'm going to go to guided. I'm going to take something on the left, something on the right to get straight. So I'm going to take this edge of this window frame here, and I'm just going to pull down there. So I've got one line, and then over this side, I think what I'd like to do is the edge of this window here. Also do the same thing. Right, so we get those two parallel. This is sort of falling away a little bit in terms of the way it looks, so I'm just going to pull it back over at the bottom slightly just to get that adjustment, and I might even just do it just slightly the same on this side. There we go. I'm comfortable with that. I like that. It's a nice image. Now I'm going to go to crop because I want to look at how I can crop this image. Now I don't really want this sweet shop in the scene here, so I could bring this down like so, and and just use that crop format. Seems to work quite well. Happy with that. Let's see if it fits within a standard size. Let's try a 4:3. I think that's a little bit too small. So let's go. Unless we just raise it up a little bit and then go back over there. Yeah, that might work. So there you go. 4:3 works. So I'm happy with that coming in there. Yep, I'm going to say enter, and I'm just going to look to be sure. I want a little bit more on this left hand side on that pillar, so I'm going to go back into crop, and I'm just going to pull that up ever so slightly. Now if we've got that little bit of red in there, don't worry about that, we can deal with that later, but I just want that post to feel a little bit more involved in the image. So okay, great. So I'm just going to zoom in, make sure let Lightroom catch up a little bit. There we go. Yeah, it's nice and sharp right the way down through. I shot at f11 to make sure I got the maximum amount depth of field, and my focus point was roughly around the center of the image here. So okay. So let's think about the next stages here, what we want to do. Well, I think we're going to need to remove some of the modern technology. Alarm boxes need to come out. I'd like to get rid of that red piece down there from the drain pipe, and then I'd like to change the sky. That blue just doesn't look natural, does it? It really doesn't, even though that is how blue it was. It doesn't look natural. So I think what we should do is we should go over into Photoshop. But just before we do, I'm just going to open up the shadows on this image. So we've got a little bit more to see, a little bit more to do. Look at these beautiful shadows that have come from the light fittings. Wonderful. I'm going to bring down the highlights because, of course, once we come back out of Photoshop, it will be a TIFF. Although that's still a 16-bit file, I want to have the image roughly in the right place, so I've got a bit of room to maneuver. So I'm going to bring the highlights down just a little bit and just brighten the image ever so slightly. There we go. So happy with that. So let's right click, let's edit in. Now I'm going to be using the Adobe Photoshop beta version because I'd still like to use a Generative Fill, and that hasn't moved over to the main edition of Photoshop yet. So I'm just going to select that. There we go. We are over into, cool, that was quick. We're over into Photoshop. So let's deal with some of these issues. Now, before I get involved in the foreground, I did note that I'm on zoom here. I'm going to just zoom in. So it's on negative at the moment. You can see it's selected in negative at the top left corner here. You can select positive if you want to zoom in. But if you're on positive and you hold down the Option on a Mac or Alt key on a Windows, it will give you the opposite. So zoom out, take your finger off the key, zoom in. So you don't have to keep changing up here. Now I did notice there was some scaffolding. Yeah, there we go. Look, that's not pretty, is it? Now that blends in a little bit over there, but I don't like this yellow bit down here. So let's use Generative Fill to deal with that. So what we'll do is we're going to go and select in the lasso tool. I'm going to right click and click the lasso tool, and I'm just going to work my way around. I think we're just going to come in around that light there. I think we'll start at the bottom and we'll work our way up. So just going to come in here, go around, keep these flowers in, they're nice, and then down here and around, back up, all the way back up across. So I've just taken this piece. We might deal with that bit in a second. We're going to click Generative Fill. We're not going to fit anything in the box. We're just going to click Generate, and we're going to allow it to come up with a solution for dealing with the scaffolding. And I say it every time, I know I do, but this function, this artificial intelligence that they're using is so clever, what it does and what it allows us to be able to do now. So there's its first option, which is practically perfect. Let's see what it had as a second option. It had a post in there, and then a third option. I'm gonna go with option 1. I think I'm gonna say. Well, I don't know. Should I go with the ones with the post? It's quite good as well, isn't it? So I'm gonna go with that one. Say yes, I like that one. Always give them a little bit of feedback, and then we're just going to move this down slightly, and let's see if we can get rid of this top bit. We've got these beautiful diffraction beams coming from the lantern, and it may mess them up, but I'm just going to go in and draw around and come down the side of this sign down here. You've got the same on this lantern down here as well. So I'm going to come up there, and what we do is just run around the edges, and the more information you keep for the generative fill in the shot, the better it can calculate. So click Generative Fill, click Generate, nothing in the box again. Now remember, with Generative Fill at the moment, it is only 1024 pixels. So you need to try to keep to small areas that you're correcting, like I'm doing here. That way you'll maintain the detail. If you try to do very large areas, you will get a blurred effect, because it will interpolate the pixels and effectively extend 1024 out to whatever size you're asking it to do. So there's option 1. There's option 2. That's nice. It's kept that beam of light in. Option 3, not so good, so I'm going to go with option 2 because it's got that beam of light. Say thank you very much. And then there's just the last bit. You can just see this last bit in here. So we're just going to come in and around here, tight around that light, around the bottom there. And we'll just take out that last little bit there. So same thing, Generative Fill, Generate, and we're going to let it come up with a solution for there. Whilst we're looking down here, I can see that there's an alarm box on the wall there, which I'm going to want to get rid of. That's how did that do there? I think that did very well. Option 1, option 2, option 3. I think option 2 is the one I'm going to go for. Thank you for that. Right, so we're going to do this alarm box. We can use Generative Fill, but we can also use the Remove tool, which is under the Spot Healing Brush tool under J. You can have Remove tool. And then you always need to select the background layer, so you can use the tool. Because I do get some people asking questions saying it doesn't work. I get this no entry sign, and that's because you're still on one of the Generative Fill layers. So go to the background layer, and then we're just going to overlap about 50% over the item itself and let go. There we go, that's got rid of that. And then we're going to work our way back up, looking at anything we don't like to see if we can remove it. There's a big alarm box there, look, so then we're going to get rid of that. So remember to do the shadow as well. There you go. Wow, yes, it's dealt with that. That's very good. I don't know what that is in the window there, but we will leave that. I'm going to leave the cables in. I think, should I? Or no, maybe I should take the cables out. Never a big fan of, old buildings, 14th, 15th century buildings that have wires all strewn over them. I understand why they do it, because they're not allowed to actually pull the building apart to run cables through it. So let's come over here. Let's just take these cables out as well. Just come along the bottom of that window there and across to there. It's very clever, isn't it, what it can do? And I'm just going to take out that bit of cable coming out of there. Excellent. Anything else along here? Cable there. Let's get rid of that one. These cables are coming through. I'm not going to take out all the cables because they are there. It is a real place after all. There's another alarm box or Wi-Fi box or something here. Now, actually, I'm going to use Generative Fill on this because it's a little bit more detailed here with the light shadows coming across, and there's this nice flare of light in there. So let's go back to the lasso tool. And we're going to start here, and we're just going to remember to go around the shadows. Really, really important. So we're going to go around there, going to come down and just take in that there, coming nice and tight along there, up and back to there. There we go. So Generative Fill, nothing in the box, just generate, and let's see where we go. I see all these little spikes they put along the top of these arches. Keep the pigeons off. They do make a mess. Well, that's interesting. It's given us a sort of sparkle. Let's see what option 2 was. It's a strange sparkle of light there. Option 3, there's a little wisp. But you know what? That is quite interesting because remember what this shop is. If I just go back to here, you'll see the York Ghost Merchants is the actual shop. So I think I might leave that little sparkle in there, a little bit of detail, something that's interesting. Yeah, I'm going to leave that in there. That's quite magical, actually. I'm going to go back to the Remove tool. I'm just going to go back to the background layer and just take out this little box here. Don't want that, so we're just going to come in there and take out the box. I didn't go right into the shadow because I didn't want to take the top of the bracket away, and the little shadow mark there is absolutely fine. So so I think we're good. I think we've got most of the detail. We just need to deal with this little bit of red over here. Quite like this neon light that's being reflected from the other side of the street. It's quite interesting. Don't like my tripod. And let's just try the Remove tool and see if the Remove tool can be clever in removing this itself. So let's come across there. Let's take that middle leg out. There we go. And then just take the head. And let's just see what the Remove tool can do. Because we have so many things available to us now. You know, we used to do this with the healing brush, and then we had the stamp tool. That looks better up here. Maybe I just redo this area here. Yeah, there we go. I think that's a better position to be in with the shadow. Just going to take one more pass there, just to, you can keep going over with the brush, with the Remove tool. And these little chewing gum marks as well, we can take a few of those out whilst we're here, and literally just tidy up the path. So happy with that. Now, is there anything else that we need to do here whilst we have the Remove tool on? Nope, I'm just going to take this out then. We can use the Generative tool again, Generative Fill tool. So this time I'm going to right click on the lasso, take the polygon lasso, which polygonal, which means we can draw straight lines. And I'm just going to do the top bit first, because remember 1024 as a square. Click Generative Fill, click Generate, and ask it to work up a solution for removing that, which it is currently doing. And I'm always looking, whilst I'm waiting for things to happen like this, I'm always looking around to see if there's anything else in the shot that I don't like. Okay, it's got it right down to there. Option 1, option 2. Nope, I'm going to go with that one. And then we're going to take another little snip round here. Just go around, and we'll go down to the bottom this time. And we will select that one. Click Generative Fill, click Generate. And hopefully this time it will remove that and put the rest of that little beam down to the ground. That would be really great if it could do that for us. So I do notice there's a little mark there. There we go. That looks better. That's option 1. Option 2 looks even better. Option 3 even better still. So I'm going to go yay to option 3. Really, thank you very much. So I'm going to just jump back down onto the background layer. I'm going to select the remove tool again, and I'm just going to just take out that mark there. Just a little bit distracting. Okay, now I think the very last thing before we do the next stage here in Photoshop is this window here. Let's just zoom in a little bit on this window. It's reflecting. Somebody didn't clean it very well, did they? It's reflecting the light from the other side of the street, which is a modern jeweler's, and I don't think it looks particularly good. So let's just try to see if we can use the generative fill. Bear in mind, this is a very small box, so we should keep the detail. So we're going to select around the window, but I'm going to take all of the white frame as well. So I'm just going to go just outside the frame here. Look, click there, and just draw these lines. When you have a curve like this, what you can do is do multiple clicks to try to get that curved edge, and where the wood is not even or straight, you can just do lots of little clicks just to get yourself around those little areas. There we go. So come down there into here. This wood's not straight either, so I'm just gonna just run along the edge. There we go, and join back up. So we've got the whole window frame. So this time we're going to click Generative Fill, but we're going to ask it for a particular type of window. So let's go with Magical Shop Window. I think that worked. Click Generate, and let's just see. So you're on the same journey as me, the same ride right now. I don't know what it's going to come up with. And when you do this, if you are following along, you may well get a very different window as well. Interestingly, it's put the white frame back in with this particular option. Let's see what the next option is. That doesn't look so good. Don't like that one. Give them a bit of feedback. It always helps. That's quite interesting. You've got the lights in there, and you've got the frame round. Let's ask it to run another 3 whilst we're here, just to see what it's going to come up with. But I always get quite excited when using this function to see how it works and what it comes up with. Well, that one's not so good, so don't like that one. Okay, so I'm thinking maybe we should be brave and go with this one. So I'm going to say, yep, I like that one. And I think we just need to darken it all down just a little bit. So we're on Generative Layer 8, which is the layer. So whilst we're here, let's go to Image Adjustments and go to Brightness. And we'll just bring it down a little bit, bring up the contrast just a little bit. There we go. Just so that that sort of white is a similar pale white to this one. That maybe is a bit too much. Just come up a little bit. There we go. Yep, click OK. And maybe we will, whilst we're here, Adjustments, Vibrance, we can just bring down the saturation just a little bit so it's not too much. There we go. Quite a magical window, that one. So I'm happy with that. So let's zoom out and see how it looks in the bigger street. Well, it does draw itself in, so I think we need to darken it down just a little bit more. So let's go back into there. Let's go into Adjustments. Let's go to Hue and Saturation this time, and let's try and just see whilst we're a bit further back. Let's desaturate a little bit more. We can actually change the color of the room as well if we want to. We can give it some blues or some greens. We can move the hue slider just to see what we think is good. So we can darken it down a little bit as well. There we go. That works better. So okay with that. Yep, I'm happy with that. Good. So I think we are done with all the removals and changes. So I think what I'm going to do is flatten this all together. So grab the bottom layer, click once, and then hold down the shift key, click the top layer. So we've got them all highlighted here. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to merge all the visible layers. Okay. And that leaves us the one that we weren't using, which was the which was to do with the tripod there. So I'm going to right click on that one, and I'm going to delete the layer. Do you want to delete layer 5? Yes, I do. So we've just got a single layer now, and I think we should do something with the sky. It doesn't look natural, even though that was the sky that we saw. It was tremendously blue. So I think we should do a sky replacement. Now we can try that by going to Edit, Sky Replacement, and then we can select a sky to go in there. So let's I think we should go with a starry sky. So let's have a look into my library. You press the little plus button down here to go into your library, and I've taken a lot of skies over the years. I've also purchased a number of skies over the years, um, and I've taken a number of star shots myself. Now I don't know on Windows, but on a Mac, if you highlight something in a menu like this and you press spacebar, you can actually see, and if you use the cursor keys, you can go down through the images to see what we've got here. Oh, picture of the moon, a comet, some stars. I think that one might work. Maybe we should be a bit mystical because oh wow, yeah, I think we might go with that one. So that's number 35, so there it is. So I've just pressed the space bar. Let's go on back again. Then I'm just going to click open, and we're going to select it in the menu here. There we go, it's popped it in. That works quite well, doesn't it? So to click away from that box, I don't click OK down the bottom because that OKs the whole module. I just click on this little space over here, and that moves it away. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, so we can deal with the area in question. Here we go. It's done a pretty good job putting it in. I think we just need to deal with some of the haloing on the edges. Looks pretty good down here. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is just remove a little bit of that blue by just bringing the temperature up. We do have blue in the windows, as you can see here. So I'm wondering whether we could use the refine tool just to help those windows a little bit. No, we can do that later on. So we're going to use the shift edge and fade edge to deal with this here. So I see a lot of people, when they do adjustments, they move a little bit, see what it does, move a little bit, see what it does. What I do is I go right to the end and see what effect it has overall, and then go all the way to the other end and then realize what the total scale of the effect is. So shift edge all the way to the left means that you get next to nothing of what you want, and all the way to the right means you get full, but it infiltrates the actual image itself. So we're going to back that away until it's not infiltrating. There we go. I think that's probably about there. That works quite well. It's still a little bit inside the building there, so just going to come back. You can see that star there. So we can, on the refine tool, we can go in there and hold down the Option or Alt key to give us a negative, and we can remove along that edge. There we go. If you do overhang slightly, because it's a refine tool, it actually works out that you're not trying to get rid of things that are not along the edge there. So I've just done that edge there. I think that just run along this edge just to be sure. Yeah, happy with that. Let's just have a look down in the sign here. Maybe there's a bit of sky there, a bit more. I think that's working okay. So I'm just adding a little bit more. Happy with that. So underneath you've got the fade edge. So let's do the same thing. We'll go all the way to the left. You can see that halo there. We'll go all the way to the right. Now actually that looks to me like it's part of the sky that's up there, but it does look a bit fake. So if you select the move tool and you go to the sky, you can actually move the sky, and we can actually sort of try to find where it fits quite well. I think I like that star in the shot there. So I mean, probably about there. I like that. You can see at the bottom here that it's actually, just need to move that down a little bit. Otherwise, you can see the bottom of the line there. So we just need to move that down, and we'll just put that star above there. And I think that works quite well. We can use the brightness scale here and just darken the sky a little bit if we want to, or we can make it brighter. You know, brighter sometimes works quite well. Yeah, I'm going to go probably around there, -35. So we're going to zoom back out. So let's go to the zoom tool again and hold down the option key to go, or the alt key on Windows, so we can just zoom out a little bit. And I want to just look at the foreground lighting there. So we've also got a flip button here, which will flip the sky from left to right. There you go. You got a little, that mysticalness that was in there. Maybe we could use that. Maybe we can bring that down a little bit, and it's a bit too. It's quite interesting. I must admit, it does give you quite a magical look, but it's a bit much. It may look a little bit fake. So let's just go back over. Let's put the flip back the other way. Got that star there that we had. We can move that back up again. There we go. I think there is where we're going to go. So the foreground lighting, let's do the same thing. Go all the way to the left. And you can see the top of the buildings there darkened, go all the way to the left, sorry, that way. Lightens the buildings up, goes all the way to the right, and darkens them down. So we probably want to find a balance point, I think, which is about there, 30. You've got this lighting mode. There's two modes. There's multiply and screen. If you click the other one, you can see you get more of an effect on the buildings, and multiply you get less of an effect. But multiply tends to have more shading. So it's your choice. Screen works, but I'm going to go with multiply. Now you've got edge lighting. So watch the edges here along where the sky is. I go all the way to the left, and then I go all the way to the right, and you can just see there's an ever so slight change on the edge there. I'm going to go around about 60. Now the color adjustment adjusts the foreground to match the sky. So if I go all the way to the right, you get the sort of sky effect. If I go all the way to the left, you don't. We're going to have a bit of that blue in that shot, so we're going to go about 70. And I'm happy with that. The output, there are two options. There's new layers and there's duplicate. If you click new layers, you'll end up with a layer for each of the actions that have been taken above. So you can still adjust them later if you want to individually. If you click duplicate layer, you'll get a single layer copy and you won't be able to adjust it later. But I'm happy with that, so I'm going to say duplicate layer. I'm going to click OK, and you can see two layers have been created. And if I turn the top layer off, we're back to the original sky. If I turn it on, we've got our new starry sky in the shot there. So let me just move this back into the center. So we've got our sky, we've got all our removals. We need to go back into Lightroom. So I'm going to go to File, Close, because I don't want it to be open in Photoshop anymore. And I'm going to click Save. Okay, and it's going to take us back. I can select Lightroom, and there we are. So so that was the before, with the tripod shadow and the red gutter there, and the boxes on the wall and to the right. Cleaned all that up, got our little magical thing in there as well. So let's do the final process now in Lightroom. I think we need to, there's a couple of things that are pretty obvious. We need to light these signs up more, and we need to just relight the scene a little bit more. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to darken the scene down by about 1.5 stops. And you might think, oh, why has he done that? It looked fine. Work with me. What we're going to do is relight the scene now using radials and gradients. So I'm going to go into masks, and I'm going to select radial gradient. So the first thing I want to do is relight this area over here. And you might say, well, why worry about relighting it? Well, what it does is it gives you a far more dramatic look in the way that everything is illuminated. So I'm just going to put quite a large radial there, and I'm just going to bring that up. There we go. So coming up a bit there, a little bit of contrast. I'm going to open up the shadows as well, so it opens up a little bit there, and I'm going to add a little bit of clarity. Watch the window. Wow, really works good. So probably a bit too much, probably about 20 is where we want to be. So that looks okay. I want to light up the footpath area here as well, make that work. I'm just going to bring that down just a little bit and turn it just a bit more. So I'm going to right click on this one, right click. I'm going to duplicate the mask. That's what I'm after, not the radial gradient, the mask. Because if I duplicate the radial gradient, every change I make to any one of those duplicated radial gradients will all change. If I do the mask, they'll stay individual. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to bring it down here onto the road here, if you can call it a road. There we go. And it's just as though the light's coming in from the bottom left here, which works quite well. So sort of quite happy with that. Maybe just a little bit more clarity because it's on the path. And I'm just going to just back off the brightness just a little bit. There we go. That's okay. Need to light this central area, so we're going to right click on there. We're going to duplicate the mask. We're going to take that duplication, there we go, and we're going to bring it up into this center area. And we're just going to light up this center area just a little bit. I'm going to bring down the highlights this time because it's very bright in the center there. And I'm just going to bring the brightness up just a little bit. That works well. Yep, happy with that. So I'm going to do one more, right click. No, I'm going to make a new one, create a new radial gradient, and I'm going to put the light coming out from this street here, coming into this street. So just going to rotate that, and I'm going to bring up the brightness again. Here we go. Add a bit of color in there just to make it work. So it looks like there's light coming from around that corner there. I don't want it to light the wall up. We can light the wall up separately here. So I'm going to just subtract a brush. I'm going to have quite a small feather, 100% flow, and I'm just going to click once there and shift and click again, and then just run along the shadow line. Click, shift, click, just to create that really tight shadow line there. Make the brush bigger and take the rest of that away. So we've just got the light coming out from there. That looks well. I want to light this shop window up as well, so maybe we can reuse this one. So I'm going to click on there, right click, duplicate the mask. There we go. I'm going to pop it on this window here. Just bring it round on rotation. That works okay. It's a little bright. Just back it off a little bit. That's fine. That's quite nice. We've got some detail in that building now. I'm just going to back off the clarity. It's a bit much. It is a little bit bright around here. So what we are going to do is we're going to subtract from this one a brush, and this brush that we use to subtract is going to have a lot of feather and quite low flow, about 40% flow. So I can just wash over that area there, just gently bring it down a little bit so it doesn't stand out too much. So happy with that. That's very good. Maybe need a little bit more light down here. So what we can do is create another radial gradient, pop it in from the bottom here. Just going to try not to have things at 90 degrees all the time. Try to just take a moment to move things around, and we'll just bring up the exposure there a little bit just to get that beautiful shadow from the frame, and just add a bit of color in there just to match. That's nice. Okay, the signs, we need to light these signs up definitely, and the York Ghost Merchant sign, you can't really read the whole sign here, so let me show you a really good trick with lighting shadows. So there we go, there's the York Ghost Merchants. So what we need to do is light up this shadow area. So we could draw a mask around really tight, but what I like to use is create a new mask and go to Object. So what we can do is, with the object selected, we can take the object brush and we can just run along the edge just like that, just so we get there, come back down through here, pick up the end of the sign and come back. And hopefully when it selects the object, there we go, it selects just the part of the sign that is that's in shadow. So now we can bring up the exposure. Now in doing so, you can see it's a different color, so we do need to match the colors through. So what we need to do is go to the color temp here, slider, and bring in some temp and a little bit less magenta, just to get those two colors to match slightly. You can see That works quite well. They're almost the same brightness. In fact, you could go a bit brighter and you could actually get it exactly the same. But you've got this shadow line, and that's going to be very difficult to get rid of. So what I would rather do is back that down a little bit to show that it's still in shadow, as you can see there. I'm just going to add a little bit of saturation to that end as well, just to make that work. And I'm just going to add a little bit of clarity, just so it pops as a shadow. You can see that it's still a shadow, but now you can read it clearly. And that's what we wanted to do. So happy with that. Let's hold down the spacebar just so I can move across. Quite important, this sign, because it's part of the whole story here of this image. This sign needs to be illuminated. So we're going to go back to masks. We're going to select an object and we're going to run around the edge. We do not want to go too much over the edge of that illuminated part of the sign. We're going to sweep down there. We're going to come up on this side of the sign, come across, paint it in, and hope that there we go, that's pretty good. So some magical edges that we got there. So what we can now do is the same sort of thing really. We're going to boost the brightness, and we're going to add in some contrast. In fact, whilst I'm here, I'm just going to add a little bit of contrast into that one whilst we're at it. Just makes it look a little bit better. There we go. So back on this one, we're going to add in some color. Oh, that looks nice. And we're going to go down to clarity and pop in a little bit of clarity so it really does pop out. And that works well. It's sort of mystical with the light, and this is the actual light there. We're not changing any of that. That's the light that we're getting coming onto this sign. So it might be just a shade too bright. So just back it off just a little bit so I'm comfortable. There we go. Maybe a little bit bright at the bottom. So let's subtract a brush. We've still got that low flow and high feather. So just gonna brush away at the bottom. Bear in mind we're inside this mask, so we're only dealing with the actual sign itself. So if I dim it down, it doesn't. If I use it over here, it doesn't change anything, you see. But if I do it here, it's only doing it on the sign. So we're just gonna bring the edge of that sign down so it looks quite natural. And I'm just going to make the brush smaller, and I'll change the size of the brush by using the square brackets to the left of the return key. They make it bigger or smaller, and I'm just going to brush that edge in as well. There we go. Looks really natural. I love this, what we created earlier. Looks really good. And there's one more sign on this side that I think we need to do the same thing to. Create a mask, go to object, and we're literally going to paint around the edge of that. You can overhang a little bit because it works out what needs to be done. And then we will fill it in. There we go. So there's the object selection. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to brighten it up. We're going to add some contrast to it. That's quite well. I'm going to bring the brightness down a little bit and just open up the shadows on this one a little bit more. A bit more contrast, I think. Let's see what clarity does to it. Yeah, that works well, doesn't it? Maybe we should just boost it with a little bit more saturation. There we go. I'm going to warm the sign just slightly so it matches the sort of colours around here. So let's just zoom back and see if those two signs look natural in their environment. So let's just come off of there. You know, they work really well, don't they? It works really well. And these are all illuminated quite well down through here. That shop window that we did looks okay. I'm actually quite happy with that. We could always just brighten the lights slightly if we wanted to. We can zoom in there, and what we can do is we can take another mask and a radial gradient there, and we can pop one on the red as such, and we can just bring up the brightness a little bit and add in some saturation just to get that red. If you want to change the color of the red a little bit, you can move the temp sliders here so you can go more towards the purple, more towards the orange. Find a point that you like, add a little bit of magenta in there, and we can do the same. Right click and duplicate the mask, and we can pop it on the green. So we can just do the same there, and now we can change the slider to green. There we go, got a nice green in there. And if we wanted to light up at the inside of the shop window a little bit, we can take another radial gradient here, and we can pop in a quite a bright one, let's say just coming over from that angle, and we'll brighten the window up a little bit like that. You can just add in some contrast. and always add a little bit of clarity, makes it pop a little bit. So let's go back and see what that looks like as part of the whole scene. Yeah, works well. So I think we're getting close to having this where we want it to be. I think we should just go to the basic tools and just do some final tweaking now on this image. So I'm going to open the shadows up a little bit more, not too much. That works quite well. And I'm going to brighten the whole image ever so slightly. I think that also works, and bring down the highlights just a little bit for that sort of distant bit over there. It's a bit much. A little bit brighter again. Yeah, that's working really, really well. Now, when you do overall clarity, you have to be careful. So I'm just going to bring up a little bit of clarity on this just to see how it sits. That's probably still a bit much, so probably come back to 10, and a tiny bit of texture. Yeah, even 2 is probably a bit much. I'm just going to go with 1. And then we just need to think about the final color rendition here. So I'm going to back off the saturation a little bit, and I'm just going to bring up the vibrance a little bit. So we've got color contrast in the scene. I think that works quite well. A little bit dark up here. I'm just going to pop in a radial gradient into this space up here, just to make that work a little bit better. Just brighten that ever so slightly. A little bit of color to match. There we go. And a little bit of contrast. And I think that looks all right up there. You know, I think we're pretty well there. So the last touch for me would be going down to effects and putting a post-crop vignette in, just darkening that outer edge. Whenever you do use this, so I've gone about minus 20, 24 there, works. Go to the feather slider and slide it to 100% just to open it up. And I think we're pretty well there. I'm still think this is a bit bright in the center. Can I deal with that by dropping down the overall highlights more? No. I'm going to brighten the whole scene up just a little bit more. I'm going to take one more radial gradient, create mask, radial gradient. I'm going to put it in this area here where this is really bright. And I'm just going to reduce the brightness just a little bit and bring down the highlights just a little bit for that area. It's a difficult one to find where's the right place to go. I think it's probably there, and then we'll brighten the whole scene up slightly. So we'll come out of masks, we'll go back into the overall exposure, open up the shadows just a little bit more. Just going to finish with my blacks and my whites. Hold down the Option or Alt key on Windows, grab the slider, I can bring that up, see where the whites are. So I want a little bit of white coming through, and I'm going to go to my blacks, and I'm going to holding down the Option or Alt key and just back it off so I get some blacks starting to show up high there in that area. I'm going to brighten the whole scene just a little bit more, and I would say that we're done. I think we are. So just take a moment to have a look at the image when you think you're nearly done. I've just pressed F to get full screen, and I think this sign is slightly too bright and this sign's slightly too bright. So my last little touches here is to go back in. So go back into masks, click on that sign so I know I'm on that one. Bring up the contrast a little bit and bring the highlights down maybe just to back off that top bit. It's still too bright there, so I'm going to go to that subtraction brush I had, and I'm just going to wash the top of that sign back. There we go. There we go. We're going to click on this one, and we're going to back that one off just a little bit. Just bring him back a little bit. There we go. Yep. Now I'm happy. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's a good bit of fun. It's a real place, and there is a York Ghost Merchant. So if you're ever in York, in England, go and visit the shop. I'm sure you'll find some wonderful treasures in there. There's a number of shops along this street which are truly magical. So, well, if you like the video, please click like. And if you like what I'm doing on YouTube, I'd love you to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Join my adventure, having a great time. and I do really love your comments and your questions and your tips. Sometimes people come up with some things that I didn't know, so I welcome that as well, and I'll try to include those as we go forward. So bye bye.